Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thanks for coming on a Sunday afternoon, evening, early in the day, whenever your time zone is, to talk about In Search of Darkness. I'm David Weiner. I'm the writer and director, and a bit of a producer as well of the Search of Darkness movies. With me is Dominic Wallace. Say hello, Dominic.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me
And
here, David.
behind the scenes, Andrew Dalton is pulling the strings. If it looks like someone is telling me what to say with a teleprompter, it's probably Andrew Dalton. But we're here today to sort of give you a production update. We want to thank everyone, all the backers, for supporting all the In Search of Darkness movies. And we're really looking forward to having everyone see In Search of Darkness 1995 to 1999. We are deep into production as well as post production. And I'll give you some updates about that. But also appreciate everyone sending in questions ahead of time. If you have questions now, please write them down. We're going to try to get to as many as possible. I will give you guys a caveat that I do not like to spoil things, but I will be spoiling things today. I will be spoiling a little bit. But if you're asking who's in this, I will tell you some people. But if you're asking, is this particular person in it? I'm not going to reveal that unless I've already got it on my list. I'm sorry to say, but I do like to have surprises. I also like to say that we're still in production. We're still doing outreach. We're still getting talent, and I'm still doing interviews. So I don't like to say who's in it or who's not in it because we're still working on that process of getting talent to sit down and interview with us. In fact, I have two interviews tomorrow in Los Angeles, and then I have another interview that's Monday. Tomorrow's Monday, right? And I have another interview on Tuesday in Toronto. So we've got lots of stuff lined up, and as we do things, we're also writing scripts. We being me, and I'm working with Alex Townley, who is taking these scripts and editing them. So we are in both production and post-production at the same time. We're still reaching out to talent, still scheduling interview shoots, and I'm scripting and editing segments. So I think the great news that I can inform all of you of is that even though you think I might be sitting on a hammock, drinking a martini, having another drink with an umbrella, it's got to be a tiki mug of sorts,
Has to be.
we are, I'm not even going to give you a percentage, but I'm going to say this. We do many movie segments, as you all know, because we're going to do from 95 to 99 each year, multiple movie segments, and then in between, larger context chapters in between. So much like the format of In Search of Darkness in the 80s trilogy. And now, if you guys saw In Search of Darkness 90 to 94, we're doing the exact same format, but now the second half of the 90s. I know this is obvious, but for the uninitiated, it's always good to revisit it and explain it. But I have written close to 50 segment scripts, and Alex has edited 40 plus. We're almost at 45 segments. And what happens is we put these together, we create sort of a foundation for the documentary. And then afterwards, what we do is we really fine tune and do graphics and polish it and bring it down to a manageable size. So my assumption is you're probably wondering, how long is this documentary going to? And my honest answer is I don't know, but I intend to make it about as long as the last one. The last one was 5.5 hours plus, or 5 hours and 35 minutes, I believe, and then about 25 minutes of end credits. So I intend to keep this within that same time frame. So for those who wanted the 10-hour opus, don't tell Robin Block because he'll get upset. It costs a lot of money. But if there are people who are like, well, maybe it'll be shorter this time, you got to remember who's making these things, and that's me. And the thing is, I love to make these movies as long as possible because I'm absolutely encouraged by everybody who letterboxed online, our chat now. People say, tap my veins. More, longer. I could watch this 24/7. For the people who say that, I choose to believe that is true. For the people who say, why the F is this 6 hours long? Maybe you're not the audience, and that's anyway. I'm gonna give the floor to Dominic just for a minute to step in and well, we're gonna talk about what Dominic does a little bit later in our little process here. But Dominic, how has this process been for you, working on 95 to 99 in comparison to 90 to 94?
The process has been a little more exhilarating because the names, the talent that we're interviewing is more recognizable as the films of the later 90s have more recognizable faces. The names that you send me saying, "Hey, we're interviewing insert name here. Let's get a studio for them in this city and all this kind of stuff." It's a little more exciting because I'm like, oh, we're interviewing so and so for what movie? I question, and then I look at their IMDb and see which films of the late '90s they were in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about this gem of a movie. So it's been a more exciting experience. The late '90s. We have Wow, we've interviewed some truly amazing people so far, and we keep getting more and more names. I know, I'm not going to spoil anything either because you will attack me offline for that. But you guys are in for a treat. The footage that we've cobbled together so far and we've amalgamated into test pieces are so enjoyable. I didn't think we could top In Search of Darkness 1990 to 94 because that was such a magical film. And watching, you said it's what, nearly 6 hours long. I didn't feel that length. It felt so accessible and easy to digest that it was just shocking how long it was. Time just didn't really exist while watching that film. I have little doubt this is going to be the same. Like In Search of Darkness 95 to 99, already the bits we've seen has been exciting and just fun and a natural progression from the last movie. It's of course it's the perfect companion piece. It's a continuation, but sequels rarely, even in our line of work, sequels rarely hit the same way as the original. Uh, I think this is going to be like an Evil Dead 2 scenario where it's just going to be, or a Terminator 2, where it's just going to be like, yeah, this is
I,
good.
I have a question for you though that you brought up, Dominic, and that is, this, and you were telling me this prior to currently, that compared to the '80s trilogy, this movie connected with you on a very different level. Tell me a little bit why. I mean, is it based on your age and what you grew up with, or is it something about the documentary and the topics? Please pontificate a little more just about why In Search of Darkness. I know this is a bit like self-congratulatory, but what I'm getting at is you as an audience member and a person who watched it just out of appreciation compared to your producer had. Why did this connect with you?
Yeah, there is a segment in the official Blu-ray of In Search of Darkness 1990 to 94 where we have a discussion like this of why this film is a little more special to me. Even though I grew up, so I was born in 91, right? I'm a baby of the 90s. Growing up, the 80s were my bread and butter because I have older siblings and I watched all their movies. The reason why the 90s hits me a bit more is mainly because none of the films that we cover, it's the topic of the 90s as a decade. And going into the late 90s, it's going to hit a lot more because that's my formative years, right? That's going to be when I was actually conscious rather than acknowledging what the years where I was born was like. So going into the 90s as a decade, the fashion, the politics, the trends, the toys, the music, everything about just the 90s has been shockingly poignant to me. And it's not because I remember it that much, because I don't. Like I was a kid. I was a little kid, a single digit kid in the 90s. But because I've become a father since we started making those films, uh, and now my kid's nearly 10. He's just become 9 months old, little Chris. It's strange because my father was about my age when he had me. My father passed when I was 9 years old, so I find myself kind of connecting with him through these films that we're making, examining the films of the time, examining the cultural zeitgeist of the time, all while being a new parent. It's strange, and being able to connect on such a pinpoint level with someone I didn't think I'd be able to get a connection with beyond what I already have. It's a really magical experience, and I really hope that this film hits in a particularly nostalgic way for other people as well. I heavily doubt they'll have the same. It'll have the same effect on others, on the viewers, that it does on me. But we have tapped into a nostalgic vein, which is incredibly powerful. And I think people who lived through the 90s, experienced the 90s, and cast aside the 90s because of the brighter decade of neon that was the 80s, that, is right next to the 90s, and the 2000s, which were their own can of worms. I think this film is going to resonate on multiple levels and make people long for a time that we have genuinely forgotten. Like, there is so much of the 90s that we've forgotten, and it's surreal to me to think how retro the 90s have become. It has made me, the baby of Creative EC, feel old in ways that I wasn't prepared for.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. While you were talking, and I don't know if it's probably my internet, but I don't know if you guys could let me know if it was me or if it was Dom. Uh, really me. Anyway, but it's nice and clear now. So I think sorry, I'm playing catch up with my own internet here. So there we go. So please bear with our modern technology, and that's really my internet technology. Um, one of the wonderful things about these documentaries collectively is that it really sort of taps into our own collective, not necessarily nostalgia, but our personal experiences and recollections with all of these films. And as I've said time and again, but I think it's important to say now, is that these movies, it's not about was it a great film or a terrible film or somewhere in between. It's really about the time period when we saw it, who we were at the time, who we were with, what we were experiencing, and we collectively take that away from a film title. All our memories. It brings back more than just the movie itself. It's our collective memories of what our life was like, our youth was like, our pivotal times in our life was like at the time. And so, simply to revisit all of these films, I think it seems to carry a little bit of that pixie dust for everybody, and that makes us so happy. But moving on from the nostalgia bit, I'm sure people are you guys interested in listening and finding out who some of the talent is, because it's time for me to spoil a couple things. We've revealed a couple things on social media, but for those who have missed the announcements, I'm going to reiterate just a handful of announcements. But I'm also going to reveal some talent that we haven't announced yet. So if you're like, oh, yeah, you already said this during your campaign, well, yes, we did. But there are some people who might not have known or seen. But there's definitely a name or two on here that we haven't announced just yet. Spill that piping hot tea, says Mandy Jean. Um, all right. Well, guess what? I'm going to have a couple names, but and talk a little bit about each and every one. But we're also share some photos as well. So the first person that I am going to, I wouldn't say it's announcing, because we did announce this earlier, but I think he's a good one to start because he was such a wonderful interview. The Wishmaster himself, and incredibly gracious guy, incredibly friendly. Andrew, if you could go back real quick to that picture of Andy Divoff. He likes to go by Andy. He's a very friendly guy. If you notice, he's got these two rings. I'm not here to do an infomercial for his rings, but I feel like I should, because he's an incredible artist. Not only did he bring some of his rings to show during the interview, but he actually brought some of his paintings. He just was proud to show them off. I'm like, who brings their paintings to an interview? Well, I'll tell you what, Andrew Divoff does. And after the interview, he talks a little bit about his rings. He was not happy with the merchandising for the gin in Wishmaster, and being an artist, he decided he was going to create a sort of a token of his love for the project and how much it meant to him. And he carved his own ring. And he casts the ring, and it's an absolute heavy quality work of art. But I have to say, talk about a generous guy. At the end of the interview, he said he would give me a ring, and he would also give my cameraman, the cinematographer of In Search of Darkness, Octay Ordubasi. He's like, I'm going to send you both a ring. And so here 'tis. Where am I? Here's the ring. He sent it to me. Look at the way this is carved. Look at the way this is carved. Wow.
Audience can't quite see it yet. Give us a second, David.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
amazed that the Wishmaster is also a blacksmith and an artist. Like, it's crazy having that kind of title. There we
Anyway,
go.
it's really cool. And it's kind of hard to get a hold of one, but you guys can get a hold of one. But take a look at my Instagram on itcamefromblog.com. I posted the ring, and I posted how you can get it. Basically, it's not like you order from a website. You literally have to like reach out to his representative. So that information's there, but I'm not telling everyone to buy it, but he also is a wonderful guy. And, you know, if it's appealing to you and you're interested in supporting it, that's the way to go about it. But all right, moving on to our next talent reveal. This individual, first, he was best known as a lawyer on television. Then he was best known to our audience as a person who you least like to go to at least once or twice a year. And that man is Corbin Bernsen. And of course, Corbin Bernsen was in he played the dentist. He was in The Dentist 1 and 2, directed by Brian Yuzna, who is also back for more in our documentary. And he's also in Tales from the Hood. I don't know if you guys ever saw Tales from the Hood, but he has a real brave performance in that. And I could not believe Corbin was like, yeah, absolutely. I really want to go down that dark path and talk about these horror projects that I did in the 90s. I was like, absolutely, that'd be great. And all I could say with some of these talents like Andrew Divoff, Andy Divoff, and Corbin Bernsen is once you get connected with these people, not everyone is like this, but some of these folks are incredibly personable. And when I'm coordinating the shoot and arranging for them to come in, sometimes they have questions. Sometimes they'll call me on the phone. Sometimes there's lots of email back and forth, but they're incredibly gracious and friendly. And it's so cool when you meet your heroes and they're just good humans all around.
Yeah, it's the best feeling. And it's always the horrible villains that tend to be super gentle and nice as well.
Let's there's another 2 pictures of Corbin, I do believe, that gives you a good sense of what his there we go. There you go. So there we are. Dig those crazy pants. He was definitely comfortable. All right, we can move on from that one. Great guy, great storyteller, great sense of humor. Super proud to have Corbin Bernsen in Search of Darkness, 1995 to 1999. All right, moving on to our next individual. So I mentioned Tales from the Hood. Well, if we're going to be talking about Tales from the Hood, well, who better to best talk about Tales from the Hood than the guy who wrote it, guy who directed it, and he also stars in it, Rusty Cundiff. Rusty came in. I actually with that his connection was one of those great connections where oftentimes we reach out when we're trying to line up talent. We have to go through representatives and we have to go through agents and managers and publicists and whatnot. And it's quite a feat to hurdle through all these people to get them to recognize that their client is someone who would be interested in talking to us. This was through a friend, and a friend who's an editor who edited actually Tales from the Hood too. Um, Guy named John Quinn, and I know John. I've known him for a couple of years, and John's always been saying, when you get to the '90s, you got to talk to Rusty. You got to talk to Rusty. Well, we got to the '90s, and we got to '95 to '99, and I said, now it's time. Let's see if Rusty is interested. And Rusty was by all means, he was definitely interested. And what a great interview.
All these gentlemen are so tall as well. Like, you are not a short person, David. And all these people seem towering. It makes me feel even shorter.
I am not. I've never claimed to be tall, but I've never claimed to be short. But I feel shorter and shorter every day when I take pictures next to these folks. All right, so here's another person that I was pleased as Punch to be able to talk to. This was in New York City. Did an interview with her. She is currently on a Broadway play, and so I had to work around her schedule. And she finally got a break after getting sort of up and running with her Broadway schedule. The day that we had our interview, she was late and incredibly apologetic because she said, "I'm so sorry, but we just got nominated for a bunch of Tonys and we had a party and I got a little caught up." And I said, that is the greatest reason to be late to an In Search of Darkness interview. And this, of course, is Emily Bergel, who is the star of The Rage, Carrie 2. And that picture on the right isn't some promotional shot she gave us. That's on the roof of the establishment where we did the interview, and we took some glam shots. And of course, she's like, if I'm going to be talking about my high school years and my first ever on-screen appearance, where I play kind of a loner and a rebel with
Gotta
telekinetic
have that
powers.
leather jacket.
Yeah, had to have that leather jacket. And I will reveal that she's got an amazing sense of humor. Talking about Carrie 2 was really fun because she calls it, I'm like, do you call it The Rage? Do you call it Carrie 2? What do you call it? She's like, well, I prefer to call it Le Rage, Carrie Part 2.
That'll be how I call it from now on.
Exactly. Kind of like Hot Shots Part 2. All right. I think two more names, because I don't like to reveal too much, but I wanted to give you guys on our first Q&A. Is it called a Q of A? A Q&A.
Sure.
I think it would be very fun and cool to release two new names that will allow people to know who's in this documentary, but I don't want to reveal too many because you guys deserve to have some surprises. Also, because we're going to be doing two more of these before the movie gets released, ideally. I always say ideally because, forces of nature do exist, but I will throw out that we are most definitely intending to have this movie ready at the end of the year, have another October sort of final campaign where you can tell your friends, or if you haven't pre-ordered it already, there's your opportunity. Another quick aside is that it'll be an opportunity for you guys to record a little something on video about how much you love the 90s, and I will cherry pick as many as I can that time allows to in the end credits, so you guys can not only have a credit in Search of Darkness 95 to 90, but also kind of it's a keepsake, a time capsule of your memories of the time as well. But without enough ado, I don't know. I'm tripping on my own words. This gentleman is a guy who he's put his toe in the horror genre, kind of like Corbin Burnson. Like he wasn't known for it, but then he was intrigued by it, wanted to do it, loved horror movies himself. This guy, when it comes to talking about the movie that he's focusing on, it's in the late 90s, although he did another one in the beginning of the 90s, which he talks about too, called The First Power. This gentleman, his name is Lou Diamond Phillip. Of course, he's here to talk all about bats.
He just oozes charisma. Lou, for some reason, this interview made me go grayer than any other interview. Like coordinating this particular interview was a lot of stress for me, and I don't get why. I think I don't get shell shocked by the talent we have. I kind of I've calcified myself to that, so I don't get shell like a fanboyish. But something about Lou broke me and made me really giddy.
Well, let's talk ever so briefly how much I want everyone to know that this is a team effort. Clearly, it's a team effort. We're a very small team, but we each have very, 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 very important tasks to make sure that all the wheels remain greased and everything works efficiently. And this is where Dominic is my absolute crutch. I'd be absolutely lost and mellow without Dominic when I have a shoot that's in the New York area, and the rather than the person saying I will show up there, they say I need a ride. So it all starts with not just a ride, but of course we talk with the talent and their representative. We arrange a date that they're free. Dominic will speak for himself, but Dominic springs into action where I need a studio, I need and sometimes I need. Uh, why don't you talk a little bit about what a shoot like this, please?
So, coordinating a shoot like this in any other city in the world is probably fairly simple. New York has its own rules of traffic and time and all this nonsense. Traveling, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles is normally a piece of cake, but for New York, for New York, it's something else. Coordinating a taxi ride uh, should be something very easy, but I'm on a different time zone, and time zones can be tricky at the best of times when you have everything under control. When you are telling people across the country you need to be at location A by this time, it makes it significantly more difficult. If you have to do it twice because you have to get a return taxi back as well, oh, it just makes everything so complicated. Throw in the fact that the taxi driver didn't speak English, and my grasp on Spanish is
I
tenuous best.
Well, you pulled
It
it off. You absolutely pulled it off. But it's amazing. Like I think
I
you
got to
know
speak to Lou Diamond Phillips as well because the taxi driver was on the phone to me when he got in the car, and he's a nice chap. And this is the only this is the only interview where my in-laws are proud of me. Like, we interviewed Robert England, John Carpenter. Da, da, da. It's like Lou Diamond Phillips. Oh, we know Lou Diamond Phillips. I'm really excited.
I get the same thing from my family. They're like I give them the what I think is the greatest name in the world, and it's like crickets. And you give them some tangential crossover other genre, but not horror genre person. They're like, oh, really? So
La Bamba?
tis what it is. Tis what it is. But that's also makes this group uh, that much more amazing because we are a bit of a bubble, and it's the best echo chamber I could ever live in because you guys care. You guys care. Everyone listening and here today. But yeah, is anything easy in New York City? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And this is actually the second studio we've had to source because the previous studio, which we had used several times before, all of a sudden decided that they're more of a music studio and they would just double book with other people in the studio making music and mixing
Bands.
music while we were talking to Emily Burgle. So if you can go back to that picture one more time, Andrew, of Lou Diamond Phillips, you could see this is like a super funky, super studio. This is a music video studio, which has all sorts of cool lighting and walls and all sorts of things. And what we do is Dominic will often source studio spaces that are for everything from podcasts to TV productions to other things other than movies. And if they have a good space and the proper equipment and it's just quiet, which is the most important thing in New
Yep.
York, it's never quiet. There's always loud traffic. There's always fire, sirens going by and loud motorcycles and helicopters. But we make do. And when you have Lou Diamond Phillips, of course, who's an absolute professional, he just knows, I will stop, I will start again, I will pick up from where I left off. And absolute pro, really, really enjoyed talking about Bats and his horror career. He really wants to get back into horror. He'd really like to do a sequel to a certain movie that I probably shouldn't reveal. And yeah, I'll stop talking because here I go spoiling things. I spill the tea whether I like to or not. All right, one last talent that I'm going to reveal here. I want to preface that in the zeitgeist, in the world, in our lives, as well as reflected on film during the 90s, there was a little invention that started to get popular and essentially took over our lives, and it's called the internet. And as the internet really grew in the mid to late 90s, and AOL and chat rooms and getting online, Hollywood absolutely got in on the excitement. And what did they do? They start making the internet the bad guy, or it's the new haunted house, dark alleys, dark corners. Sandra Bullock in The Net. It's terrible. The Net. What's going to happen on the net? Terrible things.
Why
Well,
did we stop calling it the net?
another individual took that idea of chat rooms and the dark corners that you can find and the cautionary tales that you can create out of that. And this guy was also, he was not known for movies and he was not known for horror movies. He was known for his rock band, his heavy metal band, Twisted Sister. So guess who wanted to talk about his movie Strangeland? Dee Snider. There's D being D.
Could you
D
look
with
more like a rock star?
yeah. Let's look at those rings. Is he wearing a
Is there a
Wishmaster
div?
ring?
Yeah, is there a div off special on there?
Yeah. This is was this North Carolina, right, Dominic?
Yeah, absolutely. And the studio reached out to us, if I or no, didn't D recommend the studio
D
to us?
recommended the studio near where he lives, and he really loved it and wanted to. That's his safe space, and so we connected with them. How was your experience working with that studio?
Oh, wonderful! That's been my favorite studio to work with because they were so accommodating and they are familiar with D. Obviously, he recommended them to us, and they were insanely reasonable, a very reasonable cost. Especially like North Carolina, anywhere that's not a major metropolis tends to really be expensive when you're looking
Mm-hmm.
for spaces. Uh, North Carolina's hit and miss depending on where in North Carolina you go, but these guys were fantastic, very professional, very cordial, very. I want to say respectful, but that implies other places aren't respectful. They were just incredibly nice, like very pleasant to communicate with, constantly reaching out, saying if there's anything more we can do for you, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it when studios get what we're doing. And you'd think it'd be a very simple request. We're filming a sit down, talking head interview, And the amount of times people say, "Oh yeah, this space is perfect for that," and it's a 2 by 2 foot cubicle, and it's like, how can we film here? We need to put a
Yeah.
camera. Oh. Oh, you may notice in this picture, David is not physically there. A lot of our interviews are actually distance interviews. So David is
Yeah,
at the
they're
laptop in the corner.
yeah, remote interviews. So I can't be everywhere. We don't have the budget or the time for me to fly everywhere, much as I want to be there. I have flown, to the likes of, Pittsburgh and other places, to do interviews. But this is a situation where I could not be there. And so what we do is we get a capable remote camera person. This is Raleigh, isn't this Raleigh? Or no,
I
Winston
believe it's
Salem. Winston Salem.
Winston Salem. Yeah.
And so what we do is we get a local camera crew. Sometimes it's a one person band. Sometimes it's a camera person and their sound person slash assistant. And we set. I get on live, much like we are live right now, on a laptop. And I used to think that that was not the best way to get an interview, but I think people in the post pandemic world are much more used to remote setups now. As long as it's a live feed and you can hear each other well, and the interaction is true, it works well, and it has worked very well. For this one, I gotta say, I've done. Like I said, I did one in Toronto a couple months ago. Doing another one in Toronto this week, and I'm doing another one. Let's see. I don't want to reveal too many things. Uh, the other
We're going
side of
across the world.
the other
Yeah.
side of the globe, we did one in Paris. It's pretty cool. And so D is incredibly energetic, incredibly entertaining. Gosh, he could shoulder this entire film himself, just telling insane stories in his inimitable style. So we're very proud that D is in the expect them to. But when D
Ooh.
says, yeah, that's super cool. What an asset. And that's it for our talent. Did I
Strong
freeze?
internet
Am I
issues. You did
frozen?
a bit, yeah.
Yeah, I froze. Where did I
It's
freeze, or
okay.
did you guys get everything?
That was the last of the talent.
That was the last of the talent. And so now I want to do some questions from the audience. But before I do that, I want to remind everybody. I want to announce. I mean, I think we've pretty done a pretty insane job online in the last couple of days. But we are super duper proud and excited to have been nominated for a 2025 Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Documentary of the Year for In Search of Darkness 1990 to 1994. Not only is that super cool, when I say it's an honor just to be nominated, it sure is, because when everyone is nominated, there are no winners. Everyone's a winner. But what this nomination is it's validation for all the hard work that our team has put in. Dominic, executive producer Robin Block, Andrew, everyone on our team. Valerio of
Yes.
Dream Invaders, everyone who worked so hard, on these documentaries. This award is absolutely for them. All the talent who took the time, volunteered their time to share their memories for us and their brain space. This is for everybody. So what I ask is everyone go to fangoria.com after this meeting and please vote. Please vote. Go to the fangoria.com, look for the Chainsaw Awards, vote, but also please tell your friends far and wide. One vote from you is super amazing. Telling your network of friends to support indie documentary filmmaking of a genre that you love. Vote for all the other movies that you thought were really great this year. It's very important. So that's my plug of the day. So let's open up the floor. Dominic, I hand the keys to you. I await all the amazing questions from you guys.
Yes, we have a question from backer Daniel Cameron Schaefer, who asks for you, David, what is a horror movie that got you interested in horror as a genre?
Oh
A
wow!
horror
Well,
movie. So not the horror movie, but a horror movie.
a horror movie. A horror movie. Well, when I was a kid, I was a total monster kid, and it all came from television. You know, sitting way too close to the television, and my mom said, "Your eyes are going to melt. You got to sit back and stop watching so much." But on TV, as a kid in the '70s, there were all sorts of Godzilla movies, Planet of the Apes movies. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, Hammer Horror, Roger Corman, the classic Universal monsters. That's a movie, right? I think I listed a movie. It's basically a collective. It's like a snowball of monster movies. This is before I called it horror. Monster movies. I loved monster movies. I drew pictures of monster movies after I'd watched them. I wanted to be during Halloween. On Halloween, unless it was the year I was Batman or Spock, I was always a monster. So I have very, very, very happy memories of a childhood that was filled with monster movies. Horror was something that sort of invaded bits and pieces that were on television. I'd see people would talk about The Exorcist, people would talk about the Amityville Horror, people would talk about The Omen, and then these things would be on TV. And I don't know where my parents were, but they let me watch these things, and it moved me in ways that never my DNA will never be the same again. And of course, Halloween. I credit Halloween and American Werewolf as two key films in my experience growing up that made me really want to know how movies were made. And of course, Star Wars made me want to learn how movies were made. But that put me on a complete path of not only being an audience member, but wanting to go to learn about movies, how they're made, how special effects are done. That's really kind of the entry point for me. But to make people feel as excited as I was watching these, I wanted to do that one day, and perhaps I've achieved my goal because I get to make these amazing documentaries which tap into everyone's happy memories of a time gone by. And so, mission accomplished? Question mark. I don't know.
Well, I can say mission accomplished. I know I'm biased because I'm part of the crew, but I feel incredible and more knowledgeable because of the films that we've made. So you've made me appreciate the industry more. And from Rose Stewart, another backer, another question. This is a nice, easy one for you. How do you pick which movies are added to the list, and do some fall through the cracks? A little peek behind
I
the
could
curtain.
tell you that's a great question because I could tell you, I think everybody knows this. Many, 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 many fall through the cracks because for a movie as long, a documentary as long as all of the In Search of Darkness movies are, there's always that one title where you're like, you didn't give it enough time, or you didn't even include it, or you only showed a clip and that's it, or we only saw a poster and you didn't do it. How dare you? But the problem is that there's a movie like that for everyone that doesn't make the cut. What I do is I start with a list. Uh, Let me rephrase that. Over the course of the 80s trilogy of In Search of Darkness movies, by the time I got to In Search of Darkness 3, I recognized that you really need to have a wide variety of very well known films, critically acclaimed films, middle of the road films, and the dusty, dirty bottom shelf of the VHS that we all know and love for our own individual reasons, or we just haven't checked them out yet. We heard about them. I could see a little bit about it and make my decision whether I want to see it. Um,
And
those
Dom won't
movies.
stop talking about Extro, so we have to include it in the last one.
Can we talk about that for a moment? Can we talk about that? Dom, the inside joke, which is no longer maybe an inside joke anymore, is that Dom will champion Extro to his dying breath. And so we finally not only did we got the director of Extro in, and anyway, so we I'm getting off topic because it's easy when Extra comes up. But ultimately, I'd like to choose a wide variety, but there's never enough time. There's just never enough time. So a lot of the final choices that make the final cut are relevant to popularity, whether it's pop culture popularity or cult popularity, but also something where I can include titles that you guys. I'm really thinking of the really seasoned pros who say, "Huh, impress me. I've heard of all of these. I've seen them all. So I want to find a couple titles that you haven't seen or you don't know about, and I want to balance much of the talent from these movies that I could find or experts about these movies. Talent, when I say in front of the camera, behind the camera, the creators or the actors or the effects people. It's quite a mission, as you all know, to assemble the ultimate team of creatives to talk about a decade's worth of films. And there will always be things that slip through the cracks, but we try and get as many as possible. I think that hopefully answers your question in a certain way. There's a certain alchemy to it, and I'll just add a fine point on it. It's like if you have someone who has been in a couple films, one really well known and one really kind of tangential, but they're there to talk about it. That's the perfect excuse to talk about that tangential film and feature it, because why not? Maybe not so many people have heard of that one. Andrew Devoff, for example, he's done Wishmaster movies, two of them, but he's also done some other stuff. So you could look at his IMDb resume, see what came out in the 90s, and you could do the math.
Speaking of people that we interview, backer Trey Stanton asks, when you interview people, how willing or happy are they to do it? Do you get rejected a lot in requests for interviews?
Well, listen, let's talk about rejection. I try not to take it personally.
I want to bring up a rejection that we had
Okay.
in the 80s. And it was a little known actor. Some of you may have heard of him. A guy called Robert England. We got rejected for In Search of Darkness 1, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
And then In
Yeah.
Search of Darkness 2, didn't he reach out to us and say, hey, why'd you ignore me?
Robert Englund, both Robert Englund and Tom Savini, when we got to In Search of Darkness Part 2, Robert Englund said, I'm so sorry that I wasn't in the first one. I'm happy to be in this one. I deserved no apology. I deserved nothing. I was in awe that Robert Englund wanted to spend time for me and for us for our film. Tom Savini did the same thing, though. I was talking with Tom literally back and forth for In Search of Darkness 1, and we couldn't make our schedules align. And then when we finally got him for In Search of Darkness 2, he's like, why didn't you put me in part 1? I'm like, Tom, we tried so hard. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Everyone's got a schedule. Everyone's busy. It's very hard to make things align. But the answer to the question is we get plenty of rejections, and we get a lot. If anything, a rejection is a good thing, because that means they read it, considered it, and said no for a variety of their own personal reasons, whether it's their scheduling conflicts or they're just not interested in looking backwards. They only want to look forward, or they just don't have the time or the interest or the. Everyone's a human. They're not our property to talk about this stuff. So when people do say yes, it's an absolute pleasure, because everyone who sits down with us, everyone who sits down with me, has chosen to be there, and has chosen to be there just for us. We're not at a convention where we're grabbing them in a corner. We're not on a red carpet or a movie junket where we get 5 minutes with them. No, this is like they scheduled to come to us to sit down for a good hour, if not much more, and to talk. And I think people feel like they're in a safe space. They could talk about things that they will be reflected in a good light. So they really reveal some candid tales. And, everything here is a celebration on our end. And so I think people are starting to understand that, or definitely understand that. Or once they sit down with us, they realize that I'm not there to trash their movies to get gotcha things and get the gossip and, spill bad tea, bad, bitter tasting tea. So we get some great stories.
Absolutely. And we have another question here from Tate Forsyth, who I believe is in the live chat as well. I've seen Tate a few times. Tate asks, what would you think about doing a future documentary specifically about horror/sci-fi scores and soundtracks? maybe even sound design, creatures, sounds, and voices, potentially called In Search of Sound.
In search of, huh? That sounds great. That sounds really great. Sometimes ideas about a very specific subject are really great for a spin-off documentary. These documentaries that we do make are labors of love. It takes a long time to launch these things. It takes a long time to get validation from you guys saying, yes, I want to see this. But there has to be enough for it to make sense from a production and financial standpoint. You know, we do this as our job, of course, because we love it. But if we devote a year to something and we're not entirely sure it's a idea that will reach the widest audience, sometimes we have to reluctantly say maybe another time, or maybe that's not for us. And I say that about, say, like In Search of Tomorrow Part 2. You know, we did In Search of Tomorrow. We wanted to do Part 2 and get into the deeper cuts, and the winds were not blowing our way properly at the time. We decided to go to In Search of Darkness 90s instead. So that In Search of Sound, I think, is a very cool idea. At the very least, I think if I can have an opportunity to do a chapter, you know, focusing on the music, you know, whether it's the scores of the 90s or the soundtracks, the hit soundtracks that they put together for 90s horror movies, I think that's pretty interesting and cool. And in Search of Darkness 80s trilogy, in the first one, I did a chapter that was a little bit about sound design. It was a little bit about the composers. And I did that for In Search of Tomorrow as well. So clearly you love sound enough to want In Search of Sound. I think it's a great idea. I will put it in my pipe and smoke it, so to speak.
Well, onwards to our next backer question from Scotty, just Scotty, asking, are you guys also going to be doing In Search of Darkness 2000 to 2004 after this?
Oh, by the way, there's a question before I talk about that, is what happened to In Search of Legends? And they were, you know, the Scorpion Z. Anzi, is it that Anzi? Scorpion Z? In Search of Legends remains on the back burner. We're a very small team. And when other projects really are pulling in terms of the vocal desire of the audience, I'm not saying that, you know, In Search of Sound, In Search of Legends, In Search of Tomorrow 2, there's lots of audience interest. And the thing is, we have yet to figure out our cloning technique, where we don't have inferior copies. We have cloned. We have many inferior copies. They're all in these. It's really kind of a horror story. There's this dark room where there's all these containers, and there's all these sort of clones of all of us. And maybe I shouldn't talk about this on live, you know, online. Maybe it's not a good idea. Anyway,
I keep burying
we don't clone. I never said that. No, you know, we just unfortunately don't have the time to do so many projects, especially while we're doing the expanded projects. Did I freeze again? Oh, no, there you are. Okay. You're just still, Dominic. So yeah, what are we going to do next? Well, I'm always myopic. I want to finish In Search of Darkness 95 to 99 for you guys and for me. But I think the winds are blowing towards In Search of Darkness 70s next. I believe that's what we're going to be doing next. I don't like to promise that that's what we're going to do. And I don't want to also say we're not going to do 2000s. But I think the prevailing winds are blowing backwards rather than forwards. There's a treasure trove of material, of amazing horror material in the 70s. If you like, I'm gonna put a quick plug for Slasher Trash. Slasher Trash, there's going to be a documentary that we're going to launch a campaign, I think in about 2 weeks. So look at the 80s horror doc socials for the Slasher Trash documentary. That's going to be about the history of slashers, but all the ones that were like, yeah, we have Halloween, yeah, we got Friday the 13th, but here's all the knockoffs that are all amazing and insane in their own right. Now, of course, we talk about the big ones, but this is really about the ones that were the pretenders and the copycats, that if you look at them now, they're amazing in thousands of ways. And it's going to be a deep dive on that. And Michael Gingold of Fangoria editorial fame is going to be directing that. But anyway, back to our next question, sir.
Yes. Another reason why we're not going to do the 2000s that soon is because it was only a few years ago, right?
Wasn't it yesterday that it was 2000
Yeah.
something? Wait, we're in the
Too
2000s.
modern.
When we get to the the 3000s, I'll look back to the early 2000s.
Yeah, that's when it's nostalgic. From Nathan Ridgway. How do you find interviewees?
That is a complicated alchemy of runestones, shouting from the rooftops, handing out flyers, and reaching out to representatives like managers, agents, publicists, sometimes even lawyers. We have a tool where we get access to a good amount of these folks, but I want to put a spotlight on Daniel Richardson, our associate producer, and Jessica Dwyer. I do a lot of it myself. Dominic did a lion's share in the last documentary as well, where we all reach out to. It's kind of like when you want to get a job and you send out 100 resumes and you hear back from maybe 18 people, and you follow up with 18 people, and then you get maybe 5 who say, yeah, I'm interested in talking with you, and then you actually secure 1 or 2 jobs if you're lucky. I'm not saying that's the exact percentage attrition rate, but that's kind of how it is searching for talent. We really have to throw out to the winds. So we ultimately reach out to, we say, all right, I really want to do this one particular movie. Let's reach out to who's alive, who's talking, who gives a good interview, who's available, who might want to do this. Who's actually kind of a horror fan too. All of the above come into play, whether we're reaching out to the director, the producer, screenwriter, effects person, craft service guy, actors, you name it. We reach out to many, and we try and get as many people as we can. And do you want to talk about how wonderfully easy it is, Dom, at all?
Oh, piece of cake. You email someone, they are cordial, they email you right back within the hour. And yeah, I'm lying. It's a nightmare. Usually when you email, especially talent managers, they look for a number. And that number is how much do I personally, the manager, get paid. So if it's not a film that gives millions of dollars, they don't see any point at whatsoever. Like you said earlier, even when the talent themselves would most likely be interested in the project, and as we've experienced in the past with Tom Savini and Robert Englund, they are interested. They want to talk to us, but we have to breach this barrier that is the people who know best, and it is so difficult.
It's known as the flack in industry terms. The flack. You have to get through the flack. So yeah, that's just sort of we're not complaining, because if you look at the effort versus the result, we get a lot of wonderful interview talent of all sorts. So we are incredibly fortunate to get who we get. But when people are often like, are you going to get this person? Are you going to get that person? I love this movie, so you're going to get the star of this movie, right? Rest assured, we are trying. Rest assured, we're not saying, yeah, not interested. Rest assured, we are trying.
Oh yeah, harder than you know. Harder than you know. So we have another question, and this might be the most difficult one to answer yet, from Colin Hooper. Are leprechauns real?
Oh yes. Wait. Maybe. I shouldn't. Yeah, that in the cloning room. Maybe I shouldn't. I think I've revealed. I revealed way too much today. I don't know what's coming over me. I need to be censored. Are leprechauns real? If you believe them to be real, they are real. All
And
right.
here's a question that may be even harder to answer from Phil Antonio. Will there be any segments about the later years' works of the masters of horror, i.e., Toby Hooper, John Carpenter, and Stuart Gordon?
Oh,
Rest in
yeah.
peace to two of those.
Well, fundamentally, you know how I don't like to reveal the details of the documentary, but I think it's a safe bet if you look at what these folks have done in the 90s. Uh, uh, you can, it's a safe bet that at least some of these folks will get their flowers in terms of a segment. They most definitely get mentioned and discussed, but I don't want to give any more specifics. Sorry, guys. You'll have to have a couple surprises when this documentary comes out.
Absolutely. Well, as
Wow.
we
Wait,
are
someone says maybe
running,
we should
oh,
sacrifice Dom to the Fleck gods. Wow.
they've already tried, but they won't take me. My soul belongs to too many people at this point. Too many eldritch horrors have first dibs. But we are unfortunately running out of time, so we will finish up with one more question for you, David. Uh, which horror movie do you think should get more attention? And let's keep it to the
Ah,
90s, shall we?
in the 90s? Is this just in
Mm.
general in the 90s or wait, is this
No,
in
which horror
general?
movie?
Which horror movie deserves more attention?
Mm.
Um, there's one particular movie that I really it deserved my attention, and it didn't get it until much later. And that's a movie that I walked when I was walking through the video store shelves on a Friday night, trying to figure out what I wanted. I would always see it. I'd always stop and always say, "Ah, that's a dumb title, Cemetery Man." Rupert Rupert uh, Rupert Everett standing there with a spade, looking depressed in a cemetery. That cover and that title was making me depressed, and I'd always continue walking on. And then I remember I had friends who were just like, you got to see this movie called Dell'amore della Morte. It's so good. It's this Italian film. It's colorful. All these amazing practical effects. You got to check it out. You got to check it out. And so I remember when I finally got around to watching Dell'amore della Morte, and I just said, "This is amazing." Wait a minute, is that Rupert Everett? Wait. And I did a little research and I said, "Oh my God, this is Cemetery Man." Now I didn't think it was a bad movie because of that. I just felt like I was wrongfully duped by the American title that just made it as bland as could be. Uh, People, if you guys don't know this movie, you should seek it out. It's so wonderful. It feels very much of the 80s versus the 90s, no CG. It's a wonderful romantic tale, amazing. It's a combination of there's sex, there's nudity, there's violence, there's gore, but above all else, it's a love story, and it's about love and longing and loss. And it kind of feels a bit like an early Peter Jackson film to a certain extent as well. That's
There you
my
go then. David's
well,
recommendation of the day.
yeah. So I want to thank everybody for coming out today and spending time with us. I hope it's been informative and interesting. Sorry, I glitch every now and then. It may be my internet, it may be just me. But ultimately, we're so happy that all of you guys really chose to take the time to sit with us today and find out more. Spread the word of In Search of Darkness far and wide. Go to fangoria.com and please vote and tell your friends for the Chainsaw Awards. Please do it now if you don't mind, like not the second, but like now, because July 20th is the cutoff date. So get the word out. I think we're up against some formidable competition that have their own fan bases, and so I never take anything for granted. In fact, we were up for a Chainsaw Award last time and we lost. So
Mhm.
nothing's guaranteed. And again, it's an honor to be nominated and it validates everybody. But we will do this again in a couple Sundays. We are going to do this again on Sunday, August 17. So you can mark your calendars. That's the plan for the next backer Q&A, where I'll reveal some more stuff about In Search of Darkness 95 to 99. And we'll ask for your questions. And, you guys go out and watch some amazing movies, enjoy yourselves. Times are tough right now in the world in general. All I'll say about that. And so it's nice to be able to disappear into a wonderful community like ours, to escape that for a little bit, to escape into horror movies, and just to connect with loved ones, and whether it's online or in person. These are the most important things. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Andrew. We will see everybody again soon. And until then, we'll see you guys online and on social media. Bye-bye.
Catch you later.